All right, we got a fantastic podcast for you today. Um, we're really going to talk really in depth, a lot of football with a really fantastic guest who does a great job, not just of coaching all these years, but of really breaking stuff down within the game. Probably most best known as at least from my side of it, as an offensive expert and guru there from that standpoint. Seen some of his videos over the years, and really excited to talk to him. That's Coach James Vint. As always, I have my co-host with me, actually on my right today, Coach DePascal, and we're really going to dive right into it. Coach has led some of the really best offenses, throughout Texas. His teams have put up insane amount of points. He's really done a fantastic job. One of the kind of innovators, I think, at the high school level within the RPO system, and really driving the ball down the field and leveraging what the defenses do against him to really take advantage of their alignments, their assignments, in putting his offenses in the best position. Um, as possible. So he's really a guy that's led teams to the highest level, to the championship level. His offenses, the points and numbers that they put up are insane, and he's really done a fantastic. I think one of your offenses put up like 6,000 yards total offense in a season, which is just mind blowing. But yeah, without further ado, let's bring on Coach Vint. Coach, how's everything going?
Good. Thank you for having me.
Coach, dive a little bit into your background. You've coached for a long time. Um, the places you've been, some of the things you've done, your playing background too as well.
Well, I grew up in the Midwest and went to high school in Akron, Iowa, and played for Craig Parkinson, who is in the Iowa Coaches Hall of Fame. He's actually coaching in Europe now, as a about 75, retired, loving life in Europe, and then went to college. Spent my freshman year at Northwestern in Orange City, Iowa. Played for Larry Corver, who's in the College Football Hall of Fame, and then transferred from there to Briarcliff University. Finished there, got on the wrong plane, and ended up in New York City, and coached in the Bronx for 8 years. And
Wow.
we got to Columbus High School. They had not won a game in 3 years. They'd scored 6 points the year before.
Sounds
And
about right.
yeah, they were, I mean, it was bad. They didn't have a JV program. They had 18 kids playing football, and there were 4,000 in the school. The principal, when I was interviewing, said, "I don't know why you want to coach here. You can't win." We didn't have a field. Everything, it was just, it was the perfect storm. And we got there. I worked for a man named David Diaz, and was his offense coordinator for 6 years. Then I moved over and was our defense coordinator the last year. And, we had great success there. We took a program that lost 27 games in a row and went 6-4 our first year. Second year, we went to the playoffs, and then we won a Bronx championship. And from there, went to the college level for a few years, was an offense coordinator at Iowa Wesleyan University, where, Mike Leach and Hal Mummy and all those guys had been, and then went to Truman State University on the defensive side of the ball. And then I met my beautiful wife and moved to Texas, where I was in football heaven.
Yep.
And when you were in Texas, that's when the whole scoring just went to a whole different level, huh?
Well, we scored a lot of points everywhere we were. But the biggest thing, and this is something that I don't worry about the points. I worry about the wins.
Right.
How can we, if we win 3-0, I'd rather win 3-0 than lose 53-52.
Right.
But we had really good, players, and I think that there's two really important aspects that coaches need to remember. You got to bet. I don't care how good or bad your talent is. When I was in the Bronx, we did not, no one wanted to play for you. Kids could go to any school they wanted.
Right.
Are you going to go to Kennedy High School that won a city championship? Or are you going to go to Columbus that hadn't won a game? You ain't going to Columbus. So we didn't have, a lot of really, really talented kids the first couple of years. You know what we had though? We had our most talented kids. So I want to get our most talented kid the ball in the place that they can do the most damage. If they're a fast kid that's hard to tackle, I'm gonna get them in space. If they're a big kid that's physical, I'm gonna get them the ball, we're in between the tackles, or where we're going to get them isolated on maybe a kid that doesn't. We're going to find your 11th and try to get our number one on your 11th best guy.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the key. I mean, being able to find those matchups and the whole element of space, being able to leverage space, numbers, being able to leverage the opportunities that you have and be able to read guys. Talk about how you really like, and what is it? Are you still coaching now, or are you?
Semi-retired is a good word. Semi-retired. I'm not old enough to draw my retirement. I can't collect it. But I had enough, years in and stuff that I had an opportunity come up, and I'm working for a private equity firm doing some education technology, and I build internal training and development programs and things like that. So that's good.
Mm-hmm.
And then I speak at clinics, do programs at schools, things like that, kind of on a consulting presentation basis.
Very cool. And your Twitter's super active with all the stuff you do, and like from a football standpoint, and showing different things from that standpoint. Talk about how you from an offensive standpoint, how you came across the RPO system and started really involving that. You ran the pistol gun, if I'm not mistaken, and the RPOs that you were running. Talk a little bit about how you kind of came across that system, and how you kind of built the way you do things.
So back early in my coaching career, I got hooked up with a guy named Jerry Campbell, who became a mentor to me. Jerry was a high school coach down at Westwood High School in Round Rock, Texas. Extremely successful option football coach. He helped us install the options. So we're running midline, load, veer, all that. And I grew up playing in more of a West Coast system. And in the Bronx, I'm going to tell you right now, I tried to install West Coast offense in the Bronx with all the verbiage, and kids who'd never played football. Many kids at our school, because we had kids from 80 different countries. They'd never seen a football, and we're dragging kids out to play. So that didn't go real well. I was like, I'm frustrated. They can't get it. We put this option system in. It was the simplicity was what we loved. But we had a quarterback. We started evolving, so you aren't very good. We're not very good, but we're good enough to upset some people, go 6-4. The next year we make the playoffs, play Wagner High School out of Staten Island, legendary coach Al Paterzo. They absolutely dominate us. What we found is when we played really good teams, we couldn't line up and just run our option offense because they were so much better than us. They were going to get wins. So we said, how do we spread the field out, make them defend the field? Because they were loading the box. We didn't throw the ball very much. And we had a quarterback. We had got into the gun a little bit. And I had a quarterback, Jose Campesano. Great, wonderful kid. Jose was not very fast. And so we're running a zone read concept where we read the will linebacker. So we block the end. Normally zone read, you start off, you read the end. We're reading the will. The will chases. Jose takes off, and where I would have got 15 yards. Any other quarterback we had probably would have had 50 yards. Jose got about 3.5 because he wasn't very fast. And we said, what do we do? And our O-line coach, a guy named Dennis Class, who's a principal now in New York City, but Dennis says, why don't we read the will but have a guy run a pass route? It's like, that's the stupidest thing I ever heard, Dennis. We're not going to do that. We're going to get all these penalties. We're going to have a lineman downfield. And, me being, I'm in charge. That's a dumb idea. You ever had a boss tell you it's a dumb idea, but it's really genius? Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's what I did. And he kept on. He was also the reason we got in the pistol. People started gaming our zone read. And Dennis said, why don't we put the back behind the quarterback? Dennis, that's the stupidest thing I ever heard. Next week we did it, and we rushed for 420 yards because they didn't know which side we were going to read, so they couldn't run their little stunt game. So Dennis way beyond his years. He was a young coach, but great suggestion. So that's how we ran our first RPO. I actually have a YouTube video of us running that because we were still getting under center some. I have a YouTube video of us running an RPO, reading the will linebacker from under center. So the offensive line's blocking inside zone. If the will linebacker opens to the number 2 receiver, the quarterback gives the ball in inside zone. If not, he's just going to rise up and throw. So, and he rose up and throw. So I put that on YouTube. It was from 2004.
Right.
But that's kind of, Coach, that's kind of how we got into that. Was we had a quarterback that wasn't necessarily very fast, so he couldn't run. So we started replacing with pass routes. And then we said, well, why can't we do this with all our quarterbacks? And that's really how it became, was how do we solve problems? Because what are defenses trying to do? They're trying to +1 you in the box. How can they take a guy who's not in the box and add him to their run fit? Well, if they're doing that, he's vacating a pass zone.
Absolutely.
So that's how, what we're trying to do is let's take advantage of vacated space. And how many times, I mean, you guys both know this. If I call power pass, right? It's play action off power, however you call it. What does my offensive line do? They know it's not power, so they immediately show their chest, and you get,
Absolutely.
So the defense, they've been triggering on power, now they don't. Well, if we just call an RPO, they're going to get low hat. Our offensive line's going to stay low. The defense is going to trigger, and what's going to happen? Now the defense is downhill. We give ourselves a chance. So we're going to get that good look. And if they don't trigger, we can still give the ball.
Absolutely, and it allows you don't need to have a running quarterback, and if you do, it's a bonus. You're able to do different things with it. It's funny because ran the pistol offense from like 2011 to 2014 with a team. They were really successful with it, and it was so amazing how you just never tipped anything off. It was great because everyone would have to play you balanced, and then if you lined up in an offset eye out of pistol, then you forced them to move. You controlled whether they were balanced or overloaded, and you could call your plays off of that. It really created a system where you were in charge of moving the defense. You knew if you lined up a certain way in pistol that they would play you this way. You could really dictate a lot of that. We're at a gun offset one way or the other. They start to dictate, and they know kind of your rules. And so they start to overplay to the opposite side. If your back's a better back, or whoever the better runner is, or so on and so forth. Talk about kind of how you really started to read it. Did you read like one particular guy? Did you like to read different levels? What did you do from that standpoint in RPO?
So with our zone read principles, we started off reading a down guy, obviously. So similar to our option concepts. And then as we got into the RPOs, the first one we read was the will linebacker, as I was talking about. And that was, we're going to throw a stick route behind him. One of the things we found is you don't want your receiver to run behind the will linebacker. You need him to run adjacent to. Otherwise, he can trigger and still put his hands up and be in the throwing lane. So from there, we started to just solve problems. Who is the guy they're adding? Who is it that, so it might be, we see a lot of teams that play quarters coverage, boundary safety. Are they adding the boundary safety? What run action forces them to add that boundary safety? I always want to be, I don't want to be short a hat. So to give an example, playing Caprock High School, we're running zone read, and we're in a trips nub set, and they're bringing that boundary nub side safety down, and the corner's playing outside leverage. So instead of having our tight end block, we had our tight end chip and climb, and we just read that safety. And told our back, you need to keep this on the back side, on the read side, because we're not going to get that 9 technique blocked, but it's okay. Don't worry about it. You're going to keep it over here. Quarterback, you're just going to peek that backside safety. So we're solving a problem. We were running power against Graham High School. They kept bringing that boundary safety down. So we ran a glance post behind it with our single side receiver. And then from there, it started to, all these things evolved. Simple is the first thing. Can our quarterback execute it? Can he make the throw? One of the things that coaches notice when I talk at Glazier clinics and Coach of the Year clinics and state association clinics, and I get up and put this on the board and start showing it to them, is most of our RPO throws are 7 to 12 yard throws, not downfield, from the quarterback.
Right.
He's throwing the ball like playing catch in the backyard. These are not long. Now, glance post and things like that, the ball's going deeper. But with most of our stuff, it's getting the ball out in a high completion percentage area where we can take advantage of them. Who are they adding? Doesn't have to be a safety. It could be a linebacker working into the box. Could be a linebacker triggering. Could be a linebacker if you're running power. What's backside? The guy you can never block in power is backside Will. We draw lines to him, but we ain't blocking him. So if that Will linebacker triggers B gap, which blows power up right away because you're not going to get him blocked, can we have some way to replace him? If he flows over the top because he's mirroring your pulling guard, what can we do? He's vacating a huge space. Let's take that space. So I don't know if I answered your question or not. You got me excited.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, so it depends on, who the support guy is, who's the guy that's the free player. It allows you to read that person. That glance post is very effective. Derek Oltapan runs that to death from an RPO standpoint. And because, they run a lot of power game and they know that you're eventually, if they're having success with power, you're eventually going to bring your guy down, and then, they just read that safety and boom, they're on their way. They got a guy free running to the house, so
of course,
it's really, really a phenomenal system. Now, do you ever like I see now, like in the colleges and like obviously like Lane Kiffin runs a ton of RPOs at Ole Miss, and did you ever worry about your quarterbacks taking like an unnecessary shot or anything like that? Like a guy like maybe a guy that you're reading actually comes off the edge on a blitz, and he's a little slow getting it out. You know what I mean? Getting it out or reading it and taking it because you're not blocking that guy. Do you ever worry about that? And did you ever create any kind of solutions from that standpoint?
So one of the rules we have is if we are throwing the ball down the field, reading a second or third level guy, we're always going to block the first level. We're not going to ever leave a guy unblocked like a defensive end. So initially, I will tell you that when we put the zone read in, we're leaving that C gap guy free. And we are the first time we put, a little stick RPO in, we left him free and kind of tried to run it where the quarterback could pull it and run or pull it and throw. And for the exact reason that you just mentioned, we said that we learned, and that's the thing is what people don't understand is all the failure that goes into developing things. Don't be afraid to try something.
Right.
Oh, it didn't work. Great. We learned. We didn't fail. We learned. If you learn, now, if you keep doing it, then that's stupid. So
no, Coach, I think that's a great point. I mean, and look, at some point as offenses evolved and especially for where we're at now, like somebody had to try something. You had something, it wasn't working. We got to tweak something. Someone had an idea. Someone told them they were batshit crazy. They did it, had success, and all of a sudden now they're a genius. They're a guru. They're this. But you can't get anywhere without those failures. And I think a lot of it comes from guys that are just literally willing to say, look, this is what I have. And if I want my kids to be in a great, the best situation to be successful, then we have to try something. Otherwise, we're just going to keep getting pounded into the ground. and it's just not going to be good for anybody. And I give you a lot of credit, right? Because a lot of guys have that fear of, if I do something different and it doesn't work, well, to me, what's the difference? Because you're losing anyway. So even if you try something and it doesn't work, you're still in the same spot. So back to the drawing board, right? So I give you a lot of credit for kind of evolving and going with it. And I don't know if that's my outlook on it, because, I came from a system, a run and shoot system that was doing the four wide, no huddle before anybody was really doing that kind of stuff on the regular. And it was out of necessity. We started doing it because we weren't very fast, but we could get open and we could catch the ball. So it was a system that kind of worked for us, and you kind of tweaked it and evolved it to it. Now, Coach, as the offense progressed along, and now, you leave New York City, you go to Texas. How did it take that next step? Was it players? Was it, what was the main factor kind of when you got to Texas, kind of how it really took off and went from there?
Well, I think, number one, we did have really good players that fit. Number two, we had I got to be around some really, really, really phenomenal coaches. Some people that really, really unbelievably smart guys. And then I would say the third area is New York, or Texas is a little different. Texas, you get something that you don't get in New York City, and it's time.
Yeah.
Now everybody gets it, so you don't really have an advantage unless you turn the time into your advantage. But we had, an athletic period every day. We had so we're going to see our kids every day. They're going to show up to lift before and after school. They're going to show up for 7-on-7. They're going to, so I would say that having that little bit of time helped, but also learning simplicity to keep things simple. You were talking about run and shoot days. I still remember when we were playing, I was coaching, and Boomer Esiason puts on a game. I don't know if he still does, in New York City, an all-star game, to raise money. His son Gunnar has cystic fibrosis. So he raises money through this all-star game, New York City against Long Island, the best players. So I'm coaching in that game, and Al Paterzo and some of the guys from Staten Island are there. At the time, they were Vinny Lano from Fort Hamilton was running the offense, and with Al, and and they were running the run and shoot. They put it in for this all-star game, and I thought, from playing against them, I'm like, man, how are we going to get that put in 4 practices? Because that's hard to defend. It's complex. They were signaling everything. The quarterback would alert everybody. He'd give 3 words. One of them's live. Every play was a 1-word, like speed option was snake.
Yep, that was it. It's all one worded.
It was all 1 word. And what happened was, so that helped me. That lesson there helped me because we could be a little wordy at times.
Right.
Chip Kelly was at New Hampshire. He came down to recruit one of our running backs. And I told him, I said, we've been trying, he watched, Chip Kelly. One thing about I will tell you that 90% of the best college coaches and even NFL guys, when they were in college, when they come recruit, they don't just walk in, take a few pictures, shake hands, and leave. They want to talk ball. And a lot of the ideas that you see at the college level, they might have picked up from a high school.
Right.
That now Chip Kelly did not pick up any ideas from us. But what happened was, he said, hey, I see you guys are running a little no huddle watching his film. It looks like you're going tempo. And I said, we're trying. And I was like, we're having trouble. We're using the wristbands. He said, don't. He said, and he explained to me how to do this. And he said, if you go to McDonald's and you get a number 1, what is it? Big Mac, fries, and a Coke. Everybody knows that. He said, yeah, formation, motion, play.
That's it.
So now you can give 1 word for everything. And we started to 1 word some of our calls. Of course, you know how we are as coaches. Hey, what if we combined this and this? Now all of a sudden we give 5 words.
Yep.
But the simplicity, that simplicity that we learned from the run and shoot guys, and from Chip Kelly, and I'm going to say this, any coaches listening to this, anybody listening to this, don't eat at a table. When you go to a clinic, a conference, a convention, don't eat at a table with people you already know. Don't eat at the table with people that are at the same level as you. Find people at a higher level than you. And if you think you're at a higher level than everybody there, then you need to go to a different event. Go sit next to people that you don't know and ask questions. If you're a young coach and a coach comes in to recruit, this is something I tell every young coach. When your head coach tells you get to be the recruiting coordinator for your high school, you need to be excited.
Absolutely.
That is the best job ever, because now you get to communicate with all these guys. And when they come in, if a college coach comes in and you don't get them on the board and ask them a question, you've just wasted it. So that's a lot of this too. We didn't invent any of this. We stole all of it.
Oh yeah.
I'm a plagiarist. I'm an admitted plagiarist. Stole it all.
That's the key, by the way, to be effectively stealing everything you need and putting it into your system. I think Derek brought up a great point. A lot of these systems that are now run and that are very successful, like the run and shoot or RPO based system, came out of necessity of the players that you had and your need to evolve around them and run something that they could have a lot of success with. I think that's like one of the most important things that have come out of football in the last 10 years is to really adapt to what your players can do and create those kind of systems. Whereas, if you went back, maybe, when you started coaching, a lot of guys were still locked into like, I run this system no matter what guys come through here. I don't care who these dudes are, right? And I think guys have evolved it. And even in some base systems, even systems like, a guy that lines up in the eye, let's say, and not that there are many that do that anymore, but let's say they did. They are evolving those systems to have multiple different facets to it. It's no longer just we're in the eye every single play, or we're in the wing tee every single play. They're in a pistol running the wing tee, or they're in a gun running the wing tee, or they're doing different things. So it's really interesting how things out of necessity has really evolved the game. What have you seen on the leadership side of things? Things that you really learned as a coach from a leadership standpoint, and things that you now try to help other people, understand what's important in leadership and helping them get the most out of their players.
Well, the first thing, that's such a great question. The first thing, when I first started coaching, it was basically to extend my athletic career. I wanted to continue being competitive. I'd been a college athlete, played 2 sports, wanted to keep it going. And I learned very quickly that that's not a great reason to coach. Every single kid that comes through our program, we have an opportunity to affect them for the rest of their lives. To do that, to be able to take and transform young, and in fact, I quote tweeted this the other day, quote posted, whatever the words are we're supposed to use, but Marcus Lattimore wrote a poem and read it on Twitter about one of his coaches, about Shane Beamer, and how when Marcus Lattimore, who, superstar, but we see the tip of the iceberg. When he came in, he was a nervous freshman, and he's going through this drill, and Shane Beamer talked him up, completely changed his mentality. Our words are powerful. What we say to kids is powerful. Everything that we do with our young people is going to affect them the rest of their lives. Are we building empowerment, or are we building entitlement? So
I like that.
Are we building them to become successful and believe that they can overcome obstacles, or are we trying to smooth the path for them? We had a kid that had played for us that went to Alabama, did not play. He wasn't a great football player, but he went there because he wanted to be a student manager. He wanted to be a part of the Alabama football program. He ended up being a student manager. And I got to pick his brain about Nick Saban. And he said, Coach Saban, number one, loves his players more than anyone you'll ever know. He's not touchy-feely about it. He's not going, well, I love you guys. It's not like that. He said he's going to see the best in them, He's going to set a high standard, a higher standard than any individual would set for themselves. And then he's going to hold them accountable to meeting that standard, and he is going to do so unapologetically. Because he cares enough about them, he will confront them when they are not performing the habits and behaviors necessary to achieve that standard. And that's where the leadership piece comes in. Number one, are you setting the example? Number two, are you setting the standard at a level that people must really push harder to achieve? And then are you willing to provide them? Now, I talked about accountability. You got to have consistent accountability. But then are you providing them the support to meet the standard? Are you giving them the tools they need to be successful? And from there, if they don't meet the standard, are you willing to confront them? And once you can take your standard and make it their standard, meaning if you're on my team, if you play for us, I set a standard. I don't want it to be you're trying to meet my standard. I want you to adopt it for you. Because once it's your standard, you own it. And I think that's, if we can do that, and you all have, you all have seen what our world is right now.
Yes.
We got a whole lot of mentally soft, weak, just people cannot handle adversity. They get offended all the time. We have got to, that's where coaching comes in. If football coaches could take over the world right now, we'd have, number one, we'd probably have one big war, probably two brackets, we'd just get everything solved. All right. And then everybody'd argue about who's in what bracket. But at the end of the day, everybody, we'd have some law and order. All right. We'd have people caring about each other. We'd have people looking out for each other, and we'd probably have, a balanced budget and a lot more success in the world. But I really think it's important that we understand, it, coaches, that we're affecting the future generation. And if all we do is win games or score points, they should fire us.
Right. There's no doubt about it. That's the most important part. And I think high school coaches have a enormous impact, even more so now than ever in the space, because when they go to college with things like the transfer portal and on NIL, I would say the college coach can still have that same influence, but in a lot of cases are not going to have the opportunity to have the same level of influence they might have had in the past, because even if you have that intent, you may have them for a year, you may have them for two, which is different than having a guy for 4 or 5 years, and really being able to stage that kind of influence. And the high school coaches have a even more important role, because yes, there are kids that transfer in some cases, but still the majority of players are at the place that they're going to play at for the whole entire 4 years. So I think the high school coaches have a huge impact. And I don't think that now in Texas, obviously, in South Carolina, in Georgia, they're probably paid accordingly to be able to have that influence. And a lot of places throughout the country outside of that, they're probably not. And I think it's even more important for those places where they are not kind of compensated in that standpoint, that administrators give them the opportunity to really be able to influence and help players the way they need to, because that's the reward for those coaches. The reward for those coaches are seeing that those kids go on and being successful, because none of them are going to receive a financial reward at the end of it all, but they're going to see their kids go on and be successful people. And I think that's an important thing. And they do, I'm sure they do so in Texas and Georgia, South Carolina, but I'm sure if you don't, and because you coach in Texas, I'm sure if you're not winning a bunch of games, all of a sudden you're at a different place in those areas. So, but it's really important, I think, that high school coaches continue to recognize that they have a really, really important role in that area. And I think most importantly, that administrators continue to recognize it, because football players have the most, they have the most people on the team in most cases in your school, and they have the most impact on the most amount of people. And you want those guys to feel like they have the ability to do what they need to do from that standpoint. Win, lose, or draw. but yeah, I think it's really, really interesting. So talk to me about, because I think you're really right as to the fact that football coaches can really have a huge influence. Talk to me about, and I'm kind of putting you on the spot here. If you were a college coach today, because you've coached in college, if you were a college coach today, what would your approach be in the world of development, knowing that in a lot of cases you may have players that may move after a couple of years? How would you kind of approach that overall leadership aspect to developing young men?
The first thing is when they're with us, we can't control if they leave.
Right.
We can control what we do, and we have them. So that's the first area. The second thing, I'm going to do what Tennessee's done. So Tennessee's player development department, Tennessee did something really neat. We got hooked up. So I met a guy a few years ago who was an artillery officer and played football at West Point and was developing some software, analytic software, and he wanted to test it out. He went to hundreds of high schools, called them, and we said yes. Heck yeah, you're going to let us try this out, and it was really cool. And what it was we put our data in there. We it took 5 seconds. We took our playlist from Huddle, uploaded it, and it gave us dashboards. And I could manipulate the data so granular that we had a young coach with us. He said, how did you know to throw a screen pass on, 2nd and 12 right there? Like you said, when you called it, you said this is a touchdown. When I put it on the call sheet, I had put a star that said this will be a touchdown. And I said, because on 2nd 10 or more, they did one thing. They brought this boundary blitz. Didn't matter where they were on the field. They were going to run the same blitz from the boundary and play man coverage. And the Mike linebacker to the trip side was going to be responsible for the running back. That all came off the data. Well, what Danny did was he was trying to get more people to do this and the capabilities. And he and I were talking. I said, this would be great for player development. And what they did is, he goes into Tennessee and he just did a podcast with their player development guy. So what Tennessee does is they don't just track football data, strength data, they do player development data. So all the data on every player, what their hopes, goals, dreams, and desires are, who their champion is, who the most important people in their life are. And they're able to aggregate that data, and they get very granular. That's just high level. They get very granular. And they know what each player wants to do football-wise, academically, and then for their life. They talk a lot about life purpose. I would spend a lot of time with young people trying to help them find their purpose. They say the two best days of your life are the day you're born and the day you figure out why you were born. And it took me 50 years to figure that out. I finally figured out why I'm here, what I'm supposed to do. If you're working with players on that level, they aren't going to want to leave. Now, some of them are going to, and listen, there's some that need to. If you're our third string quarterback, but you're really damn good, and you could go to Ball State and get $10,000 a month to play football and be a starter, you need to. I totally understand. Do I like the way it works right now? No, there's a lot of things that could be improved. But listen, if you're a kid that grew up in an area where your mom worked 3 jobs to support you, and you're at a place where you're a second string guy, you're getting a free education, that's great, but you could go to this place and your kids, you will never have to work, your mama will never have to work, and your kids and your kids' kids will never have to work. That's where you need to go. And we can't get upset at kids for saying, I have an opportunity here. So that's where I would really get heavily involved in that player development side, building the relationship, learning about their hopes, goals, dreams, and desires, giving them a roadmap to get there, holding them accountable to it, and then supporting them through the decisions that they make that maybe will take them to another place. And I think you'll find when Nick Saban was coaching and the transfer portal started, he didn't have a lot of guys leave because they also dug pretty deep into development of the player off the field. And I think the best programs do that.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's no doubt about it. And I think the other thing is that I think they know that kid could leave, and they hold everybody accountable to that standard that you talked about. And if for some reason they start to deviate from that standard, then it's no longer the right place for them, right? It's no longer the place that they belong at, and they probably will want to transfer if that's the standard that they don't want to uphold, or they don't think they can uphold, right? So and I think that's a by the way, that dashboard thing, that's, I think me and Derek both wrote that down. That's really, really a very, very interesting concept of being able to track those elements. Not just, like when I was in college, we used to have to write those things down, and you write it on a piece of paper. I never knew where the hell that went, because nobody asked me again until next year when I had to write it down again. So I think that tracking that is a really, really important thing. It's one thing to ask the guys for that stuff, but to be able to track, like, are you on point with what you're doing? And here's what you said, your goals were, or here's what you said, you're dreaming about, well, here's what you've been doing the last 6 months. Does this adhere to your goals and your dreams? And if not, let's get back on track. It's one of the things that, from a religious side, I think one of the things that, being a Christian has helped me to do is keep me back on track. Like, does God approve of what I'm doing right now? Like, so I use that with my child, you know what I mean? Like, when, as children will do, they go off the rails on, anything that is not going their way sometimes. But it could just be something they're frustrated with, right? And you ask them pretty quickly, like, would Jesus Christ approve of that decision? And it's amazing how quick, like, I see someone get centered back, and not everybody believes in Jesus Christ as their savior, but something that holds them to a standard that they can both agree on, that keeps them accountable, I think is really, really an important thing. And that tracking mechanism is such an important element. And I'm sure you're using it in what you're doing today, to be able to hold everybody accountable around you, and people to be able to hold you accountable. It's something in the business side of things, that, especially as you get in bigger companies where you don't know every person as intimately. And I think in college, that's a big thing, right? In high school, you probably, even though you have a lot of kids, you're around them. If you're a teacher, you're around them more. You see them more. So even though you might have a large number of people in college, outside of when you're working with them, they may be often doing 8 hours somewhere else away from you, right? So, or 10 hours or 12, So being able to keep them on track from that standpoint, really, really important thing. Well, I'm curious, do you see correlations between things that you do in business to coaching?
Oh yeah, 100%. So one of the things that you brought up there was knowing what your goals are, and you alluded to habits. We are the result of our habits. If you have a goal to do X, you need to do this, this, and this. If you're not doing this, this, and this, one of the things that we would do is bring them in. Here's your goal. Here are your habits. Do your habits match your goal? No. Which one do you want to change? I'm good either way. We can change your goal to match your habits, or you can change your habits to match your goal. And it's a simple thing. It's the same in business. If you care about so this is again a question that whenever I talk to people about leadership, it's a question I ask. As a leader, your responsibility is to help every single person you lead to achieve their dreams. It's not to use them to achieve your own. I cannot lead you if I don't know where you want to go. Mm-hmm. I know where we need to go as a company, but I want to know where you fit into that. That's when you start getting into great servant leadership. That's when you get into, how can I help this person to be able to accomplish the things they want to accomplish within the mission, vision, and values of our company. If I can't do that, then maybe they weren't a good fit to begin with. So if we hire well, it starts with hiring. We need to hire people that fit our mission, vision, and values. But then from there, it's, how can I help you? Peter Drucker, someone asked Peter Drucker way back in the day, old management expert. Yep. Hey, why do you want to train these people? Like, what if they leave? And he goes, what if we don't train them and they stay?
Yeah.
I'm not just developing you when, and I develop a lot of our training programs and deliver our, training programs to employees across different departments. We're not training you just to be really good at your job here. Yes, that is part of it. That is a big part of it. We need you to be good here. But I want to train you to be good wherever you go. Like, I want you to have an experience here where when you leave, you say, that was a great place because it prepared me for this next step. Sometimes you have to leave to grow.
Absolutely.
You're at a company, you're at a place. There's only 4 people above me, and they all are related to the person that owns the company. I may not be moving up right away. I may have to go somewhere else and then come back. Or maybe it's a company where you're at your lid there, but they're somewhere else. So sometimes you do have to leave to go. But let's prepare you for that. And then let's stay with you along your journey. And I think you both have probably seen this in your coaching days. I've never had a kid reach out to me and say, thank you for teaching me how to double team block. I've had a kid say, thank you for holding me accountable to doing this. Hey, thanks for believing in me. 100%. Thanks for being there. So it's the same. That's that parallel to business. It's about people. How do you maximize the performance of your people to maximize and achieve the goals of the company while helping them be prepared to push through to achieve their dreams?
Yeah. And coach, I think it's a great point too, because, when you really look at it and it's something that, in coaches, at the high school level, most of these guys aren't going on to play ball at the next level. Like, that's not what they're going to do. Right. And you may have 1 or 2, and that's great. And, the coaches that want to put all the time into it and all of those types of things, like, yeah, that's great for that kid only. But majority of your guys are going to grow up to be, citizens. And that's where I think the most important and pivotal part, and ultimately, like, why I personally do this, because to see the growth of a kid that comes in as, the scrawny little freshman, or, just the immature kid that, just becomes something, and to see them grow. Like, yes, we're there as coaches to help them with the X's and the O's and the bigger, faster, stronger, and all that stuff that happens on Friday night. But it's about all the other time that you spent with them, because a lot more time is spent with them if you're doing it to the level I think you need to do it right. A lot more of that time is spent with them through some of the most pivotal developmental years of their lives. And you're going to, whether it's good, bad, indifferent, leave some type of impact on them personally as you go. So make it a positive one. Like, you know what I mean? And again, kids, everybody wants to say about this generation and these kids different. Yeah, they're different because it's how they've been brought up, right? But they still ultimately are kids at heart that want to be coached. They want to have structure and all those types of things. But you need to just dive in to the kid, who they are, learn who they are, right? And it's the same with hiring people. Like, you got to know what pushes buttons and what's the right fit and all those types of things. But I just great. Like, that's really what I think goes into making a good overall football player, is creating like a good, setting the example and creating good habits and those types of things off the field. And then once they gain that trust and that comfort level of, coach really has, he might be hard, but he understands like kind of where I need to be, or he sees something that I don't see yet. And they might not like you at the moment, but down the road, going to come back, and that's what makes coaching worth it. But I've always said, you got to win with people. You got to know who they are on a different level. If you make it just about football, they're not really going to, get to that level that I think like they could. When you really show them that you care and more than just, what position they play, what their number is. I mean, know how to pronounce their name. It seems so minuscule, right? But like, know how they say, hey, buddy, how do I say your last name? So that you're not screwing it up for 4 years. It's what it really takes, especially with kids now that, this is a Y generation. They ask a lot of questions. Like, answer those questions. Don't be hard-nosed. And if you're wrong, they see right through it. So you can't bullshit them because they know. Or if not, they're gonna go figure out why you were wrong. So you got to be open, honest, and you set that, not your friend, but I am here to like be a shoulder for you if you need to. Like, you got to create that. There's levels to it. I don't think you can dive all in at once, but kids are, I just think that's what it is. You got to win with people, and that's ultimately what they'll remember. Not that, hey, coach, remember when you threw me that pass and we scored a touch? Like, they're going to remember why you threw them the pass. It's because, I saw you gain that confidence to ultimately be this player. So you win with people.
Here's the thing to build on that. If you do those things, you develop your people, you'll win more.
Absolutely.
If you have high accountability and high standards, you're going to win more. We've all seen it. We've seen, and that's in business too. You develop your people are going to help your company excel at a higher level than if you just focused only on the numbers. The numbers are important, but people drive the numbers. When we look at, you've all seen those teams that are full of 5 stars. They're full of really good athletes, and they go 5-5 or they go 3-7. I coached one of those teams one year. I coached superior athletes to mediocrity because I forgot why I coach.
Yep.
And I let wins and other things get in the way for a year, and it absolutely is the one thing I will never be able to live down. I cheated those kids. Sure, they had a great football experience, but I didn't give them a great experience for their life. And that's something I think we need to look at. And you've seen teams and you're like, how do they win? How do they win? Like, they're
Right.
little.
Yeah. They're not big. They're not fast. They're not this. They do the little things and they hold accountability. I always like to say too, because look, I came from a smaller type program, and that's how it was with our town and the high school, and it was just always like, how do they win? And it's like winning breeds winning, right? Because it's not just like what we do on the field, but it's like how you act every single day with everything you do and how you approach it. And those like things are built into you. And if you do it on a consistent basis, it starts to now be player led. Right.
Yeah.
And, good teams are coached by coaches, great teams are coached by players. Right. Or, that's when you have that high level of accountability where it doesn't seem, those things that to teams that lose or don't have very high character, like those are wow things that like I can't believe they do that. To those other guys that are in it, that's just what we do. That's the norm. Like, they don't see any difference in it. That's what I think the separation right there.
You can tell a lot about a team.
Yeah.
Oh, I was just going to say, you can tell a lot about a team by watching how they handle adversity and then how they practice.
Yep.
Yeah.
And one of the things I'd encourage coaches to do is to have another coach come watch your kids.
Absolutely.
For 45 minutes. Stand out, not where the kids know.
No,
just bring a notepad out, take notes. I had a coach do that, and I said, what are 3 words you'd use to describe our teams? And then what are 3 things we can do better? He was unbelievable, helped out a lot. It gave me a whole different, I thought we were doing some things we weren't. And I think that's a vital piece right there. You said it. And then adversity. When I was recruiting quarterbacks as an offense coordinator, I wanted to watch the whole game, whether they were up, down, or whatever. And I didn't want to watch them if, I'm going to watch every game, everything we can get on video. But I want to watch them in person so that I can watch them on the sideline. When they're not in the game, what are they doing? What's their body language say? Because you can see a kid that looks like $1 million, but what does he do when the ball's not in his hand? Mm-hmm. What does he do when he's not on the field? What is he doing during special teams? How is he handling his teammates? When things, and a friend of mine actually was at a game in East Texas this year. He's a college coach, was wanting to watch this player. And he said, I'm sitting there and I was about to leave because they were behind. He's like, let me just see. He said they were behind. he's a good athlete. I'd seen all I need. We're interested. And he's only a sophomore. We got time. And he said, and then the kid got 2 15-yard penalties and got ejected. It's like, I'm glad I didn't leave because I got to see that. And he said, it's not that we're not going to recruit that kid now, but now I know he's going to need to do some development.
Mm-hmm.
There are some things that need to change. He said, I called the high school coach and said,
yeah, we want to find out why. Why is he losing? Why is he losing it? Was it an isolated incident? Is this the norm with
Yep.
them? You want to find out the whys on it. I think sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
You're good.
Yeah. I think one of the things too is trying to help kids figure out what their best is and how to try to get there. Like I think that's one of the hardest things for kids to understand because and kids, adults too, everybody, right? But you think you're working hard, right? And someone comes over to you and say, "You've got more in the tank," and you're like, the first time someone says that to you, you're like, "Wait a minute, I thought I was working hard, right?" Like, but you're saying I'm not working hard? No, what it is, you got more. Like, there's more to what you are in order to get to the level you want to be at, right? And then I think all the stuff you and Derek talked about with the accountability part, hold them to. You said to me, "This is what you want to be." Well, this is what someone who wants to be this.
This is what they're doing.
This is what it looks like, and you're not doing that. And it kind of goes to. I wrote it down. I thought it was so good. Goals to match your habits, or your habits to match your goals. I think that's a really, really good thing because that's a conversation that I think every person has to have with themselves too, as well, on an ongoing basis. Because there are days that my habits don't match my goals. Well, am I willing to do that over and over again, or am I willing to change that and get my habits to match what my goals are? Like, am I able to do that? Am I able to stop myself in its tracks? Because everybody fails, right? And everybody fails to keep themselves on the standard all the time. Okay. Can I get myself back on track? I think the players and coaches that are able to get guys back on track, right? You talk about that adversity, getting them back on track. And it's funny you said that about, like, you coached a team with all 5 stars and you felt like I felt that happened to me once too. And it was after my team made the state championship. My team made the state championship. Most people would probably say that team overachieved. I had mega stars back on that team the next year. I mean, and they reeled off like 8 straight wins the next year. I mean, winning by like 40 points. But we were always concerned that we could not get them to work to what their best was. And that at some point that they were going to face someone that was as good as them and they were going to be in trouble. And it happened. They faced the team in the league champ, another undefeated team, equally as talented as they were. And these were kids who, in all fairness to them, had come from a program. When I took it over, they were one of the worst in the state. They had, in 4 years, gone to the state championship. Well, now, amazingly, people are amazing, right? Like kids are amazing. So this was a group of kids when they first started, couldn't get out of their own way. Now they went to the state championship. All of a sudden thought they were coming back and they were God's gift. You know what I mean? And they were fantastic kids too. So it wasn't like they're back. For them to do what they did was amazing, right? But now you were having a hard time convincing them that they needed to do more because now all of a sudden they've had a lot of success. And everyone they walk in the hallways and, they're all dating the prettiest girls now instead of, they're all everyone's patting them on the back. And that part is so hard. I think, your statement about does your match your habits, your goals to match your habits or your habits to match your goals. Like, I actually think back, I'm like, I wish I pulled each one in my office and had that one word conversation, because I think it might have got, and then by the time they realized it, which was in the second half of the first round of the playoffs, the team they beat the year before to go to the state championship, they were down at halftime by 28 points. A team who I thought they were better than, but a team that was so good. And they all of a sudden were fighting, but it was too late. It was too late. And after the game, they were all very upset, but it was interesting because they were good kids. They kind of had like an aha moment, like, we let something slip away that could have been ours. And because they were good kids, they understood that part of it. But it was a shame because they had the ability to win it the next year. They had the kids to do that. Whereas the year before they really didn't. They were younger and they had, and they went to the state championship and were in the, it's interesting to see how people can get to a certain point, fall off a cliff for a second or two. Can they get back on the cliff? And it's with coaches. That's such an important thing. I would love to, in close, because I brought that up to really see if you can drive home this point in your own way. How do you help people get back off when they fall off the horse, get back on and realize the things that they need to do to get back to try and accomplish what their best is?
Well, the first thing is there has to be a why. They can't just want something. They have to want it for a reason. And that's, again, getting back to that Tennessee question they ask is, who's your champion? Because a lot of times the who is the why. I want to do it for this person. For me, it's my wife and daughter. That's the why. Because you said something very interesting there. Everybody falls off the horse. Everybody makes mistakes. We have goals. We're pushing to them. The difference between people that achieve at a really high level and mediocrity is the consistency of habits, the consistency of doing things when you don't want to do them. That's all discipline is. Absolutely. Is choosing to do what you don't really want to do when you don't really want to do it because you want to achieve something that's really important for you to achieve. So Is this what you want? Why do you want it? And then what is the step that we need to take to course correct? There is no straight line to success. It's going to curve. It's going to go up and down. You all know, and getting people to realize that the problem today is everybody, and again, every generation has said this about the previous generation. Sure, all I can say is kids and adults today, we all know this, we are inundated with information. We have more information available just like that than we've ever had. Thank God there weren't cell phones when I was growing up, because I'd be an unemployable right now.
Yep.
But I think we need to ask them, what's the why? And then what can I do? How can I help you to make that best decision? And then do we need to tweak something? And I'll tell you, I'm gonna go in a rabbit hole real quick here, but I think this is important. A study came out, Stanford University, Yale University, Duke University had all done studies, and a study came out relatively recently where they had hooked up all these different big research departments, had hooked up machines that track brain waves on athletes. And it tracked them doing different activities, and it tracked them visualizing different activities. And what they found was that the athletes visualizing stimulated the muscles for the activity at the same level as if they were actually doing it. That's the first thing. And Michael Jordan, and you hear about these guys, Michael Jordan, you say, I used to play the game before the game.
Yep.
If a person, just a regular person, can see themselves doing something, the mind cannot differentiate between reality and imagination. The mind doesn't know the difference. If you can visualize yourself doing it. Now, I'm not talking about you or I saying, we're going to go play in the NFL because we can visualize it.
Right.
No. Okay. But I'm talking about you visualizing that you can do something. And I think that is something important if people are struggling to achieve.
Yes.
Can you actually see yourself doing this, or is it just something that would be nice so you're saying it? Because once you can see it, you can visualize it. When I say visualize, I'm not just close your eyes, see a picture. Can you feel it? Can you emotionally attach to it? At that point, you won't let yourself fail. You won't let yourself be undisciplined. And then people, I am on a quest right now, and I'll tease this. In a couple weeks, I'm going to put, I don't know if it'll be a couple weeks, a couple days. I'm going to put something out where I'm going to do like a kind of a challenge for men. Physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. 30 days transformation. I haven't named it yet. Got a bunch of different names, but I'm putting the outline together. Free. Just going to be, and I'm going to take them through how to transform your life. I'm living this. I'm not done with it. It'll never be done. but I've lost about 25, 30 pounds, completely changed a bunch of different elements, gave up things that I used to like. All right. And my wife, I'm like, man, I don't feel like I'm making any progress. And one day I had my shirt off and I was getting ready to get in bed. And my wife said, look at your abs.
Ah, love
I
it.
was about to
Game
not go to
over.
the gym the next day. I was about to not
Game
go to the
changer.
gym. So having someone else, sometimes you need people around you that will see what you see. And the reason I'm going to put this little group together, if you want to accomplish something, you cannot do it on an island. Yes, you need some secludity, you need your time, you need your solitude. But if you want to accomplish something, be around people who've already done it or are going to do it with you.
Absolutely. Surround yourself with those like-minded people. And I think that's for, like, that's when you can get a lot of your team, especially at a high school level, because I'll always take it back to being a high school coach and whatnot, is when you can get the majority of your team that's willing to push those guys and set that standard here, then it just follows suit, man, because nobody wants to be at the bottom of any type of list. Like, that's just works. Doesn't matter, like Tony Holler, sports performance and all the stuff that he does when it comes to speed and whatnot. He always says, he rank, record, and publish, right? Rank, record, and publish. Make everything out there, put it down, and especially this generation, everything has to be, it's all visual. It's all about comparison and where they rank and whatever and all those kind of things. But when you surround yourself with guys that want to be all on this, and everybody's all on the same page, that's when you really got something golden. Coach, I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Coach, it's been awesome having you on. It's really, really interesting to hear, one of the nice things about, obviously you've been a coach, but you're also in business. You see, I always say, business is a sport, because there is you don't know. In a lot of cases, you may not even know who your competitor is. Actually, at least in sports, you a lot of times do know who at least your competitor is, but you may not even know who your competitor is. You have to constantly. That's where striving to be the best that you can be is important, because you don't. Only thing you could do is be your best. You may not know who's competing against you, and figuring out those opportunities to be able to continue to succeed. It's really awesome. I really love having you on. Please send me that leadership program you have when you come out with it and you set the date, because I definitely want to be sitting on there. I'm curious. Do you follow John Maxwell at all?
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever been to any of his leadership conference? Because I went to. The reason I'm asking is I went to one a couple of years ago, and it was unbelievable. I went to get a John Maxwell certification in leadership, and it was one of the most amazing 4 days of just learning, just learn, and mostly learning from other people, what they did, and he obviously came out and taught a bunch of stuff, and it was really, really, really interesting thing, because I think what you're talking about and the stuff that you're teaching is amazing, and it's right in line with that kind of stuff. So yeah, I was curious. I just thought that at some point you might be interested in going to one of his things, because it's unbelievable. I thought it was one of the most when you talk about purpose and figuring out what you want to be, and helping you with your purpose. It was a great thing to really helping with my purpose and figuring out what I want. So it's really, really great having you on. No coincidence that you're a fantastic coach and a fantastic leader. Really, really fantastic demeanor, and the way that you talk about things, and the way you teach it, and the way you put it in a really, really easy way to understand. I mean, I wrote 4 or 5 things down that I'm like, shoot, this is simple. I got to write this down, because not only is it simple, but it's simple to use, and has tremendous impact. So it's great having you on, and we wish you the best going forward.
Thank you. It's an honor, and I've followed you for a long time and watched your, back in the day, picked up a lot of things from you on the recruiting stuff, and
Yep.
so just really appreciate the opportunity, and it's been my pleasure.
Thanks so much.
Coach.
Have a great day, James, and enjoy your weekend.
Thank you.
All right.
Thanks, Coach.
That was mind-blowing awesome. Mind-blowing awesome. Like literally. Like I again, the best thing to me is like I write down stuff at each, a lot of time, just like you do when a guy comes on and talk. But it's one of the few times I've written down like 4 things that I really like needed to understand better and that I could implement in what I do. So awesome. Well, that's a great find. It's funny because it's like I'm pretty sure, and now it's kind of coming together. Like when I went to Pistol, like there's a reason. It's so hard to remember exactly why you went to something.
Well, I also feel like
I probably followed or I was always active on X way back in the day, like when it first came out, and
well, a lot of these guys have done multiple things too, right? Like a lot of them have done they may have made their name here, and then all of a sudden it was here, and it's just so we've seen them all along, like somewhere, shape, or form. We dove into their stuff and that kind of thing. It's just a matter of like what hit home for us. You know what I'm saying? So and now right, like
which Jerry Campbell book sitting on my shelf over there.
Yeah, it's like okay, you know what I mean? Like, whatever.
Do you have any Jerry Campbell books? By any chance, I'm curious.
I don't think so.
The Jerry Campbell books are enormous. So I don't know if I still have his triple option one. I used to have his triple option.
Oh yeah. I have dude.
And I have his special teams one, I think, Derek. I think I have his special team one.
I have enormous. I have 3 of them sitting over.
And then I have this one. I think I have it over there still.
Yeah, back when books mattered.
I still like those books. I like to thumb through them.
Love all about them.
Like I'm like, oh, what did he say about this?
Love everything about it. And there was that's why I used to love
because I get distracted. Don't you get distracted? Like if you go on YouTube, right, and you're like, I want to go on there to look at I don't know, whatever formation. Don't you end up going down a rabbit hole that takes you in a completely different direction from what you intended to go in?
It's just like to me though, there's always even like listening to an audiobook. Like I just like to turn pages and like the smell of a book. I'm sorry, it's just like it's just what it is, dude. Like I just like a hardcover book for everything, even though I know I can just get an audio book or just listen to it here and it's easier or whatever. But there's just something, and especially for football stuff, the football books and stuff that I have, like just being able to go back and reference and thumb through it. Like there was nothing better than going to a Glazier clinic and like just seeing that table, like whoosh. Like, what book do you want? What are you trying to do this year or whatever? And then, hey, I'm going to go talk to somebody. And then it's, hey, go check out this book or do this or do that. Like, those are the things. Like, it's just different. But look, I love his stuff on leadership, right? Like, all that stuff is really good. But you can tell, like, that stuff comes through experience, like his years of coaching. You know what I mean? Like, those are the things that I think a lot of like to get where he's at in terms of like the demeanor and just all of his knowledge when it comes to everything that he's put out. Like it's come through years of experience and, trial and error, right? Like, hey, we tried this, didn't work, back to the drawing board. Like you got to be willing to do a little bit of that and say, you know what, and just roll the dice and just, come up with something and then try it. And if it doesn't work, you're no worse than when you started,
I also think it's really important because we tell our athletes all the time to hang around with the people that are the right people, right? It goes for coaches and leaders too.
100%. Show me your friends and I'll show you who you are as a person.
Right. So that's a big deal as far as being able to make progress in certain things. Listen, I find myself you hear me say some things along those lines. Like in my own town, obviously I'm not from here originally, and that's probably one of the hardest things when you're not from somewhere to like ingratiate yourself. And I've worked around, into different circles, and when what I really continue to try to do, and I'm starting to figure it out, like find the right. It's taken almost 7-8 years. Which people are higher achievers with the same values that I have? So
see, the values part always gets
big part.
The value part is the big part, like morals, values. Like it's something I've always stood on. It's a huge deal. Like I'm not willing to sacrifice that for anything, whether it's, you know what I mean, like whether it's monetary or status or whatever that is. Like
big point. Because if you just choose
brother.
to be around high achievers, let's say
you're gonna have some cheaters, you're gonna have some stealers, you're gonna have some whatever, you're gonna have some shady people.
Like high achieve is a wide scope, right? There are people that achieve a lot, but may not have.
But how did you achieve that, right? And like, what did it take to get there? Like, there's a lot, right? Like, it's one thing I'll like, you know.
Then there are high achievers that have the values that you believe in, that you subscribe.
Correct. There's some there, but it's a lot.
It is, and you know, I think as for adults have a hard time deciphering that, because you look at someone who is a high achiever, right? And you go and your tendency is, what did they do? And then if your values don't align with them, then you have to make sure you understand what your values are, because then you may, not on purpose a lot of times, but people will shift their values to what someone else does, and that's
right.
not who they are.
Exactly. And now you have somebody that's like, oh, this is just to get, like, you know what I mean? Yeah. That's why I loved his thing about, you know, talking to the kid and like writing down their goals and that, you know what I mean, or whatever, and then just saying, is this, you know what I mean? Like, you told me this, but this is what you're doing. So how does this align with that? Like, what are we talking about here? You know, goals to match your habits to match goals. Like,
well, and I always thought so when I was in college playing, at least I'm thinking back to it, the first regime, which had tons of athletes, you know, I was recruited in that group. We're missing something that would have got them more offers at Division I, but like had ton, like you would see guys, you'd be like, what's missing here, right? So because they're so talented. Well, that first regime did not hold us accountable with like all those things, okay?
Right.
So we would have winning seasons. It wasn't that we didn't, you know, but we could also have easily a losing season too with talent, right? Like, so it would be somewhat reliant on how much talent did we have, and we usually had more talent back then in our conference than most of the teams.
Right.
But then when Skip came in, I thought it was interesting because I talked about how Skip did implement, it was a rudimentary version back then, and probably came from his father, of that kind of accountability. So the only thing that I thought, which is what I thought is great about now, and other people hopefully are doing it, is to continually track it is really the important thing. So we would have a periodic, like, let's say, I don't know, let's say after spring ball, what are your goals for the season? But, you know, like we
right. Yeah, generic type stuff.
I mean, it was pretty, but it was, Skip did a good job of making it in depth, right? But we probably didn't look at it again until after the season. You know what I'm saying? So it wouldn't be good to keep you on track at that point.
Every week. Or I think it's like I think it's a lot of an off-season type thing too. Like I want it, like for me, like I want to know, what other sport are you playing? Like, what do you know what I mean? Like what do you have going on in school? Like all of those things. And look, it's a little different.
Like, can come and help. Like you, like when he was talking about Tennessee, like
yeah. To put that in there and like fire that up. Absolutely.
If it's like Tennessee's able to pull it up right on his phone or his iPad and show you quickly without. Like, you know, you could do that while you're on the sideline with your guy.
Right. Be like, hey man, you just got a 15-yarder. Like you told me, like this shit right here. Like
here it is, right here on the iPad that I have right next to me.
Wild.
It is, but I think that's a good use that Tennessee's doing of technology integrating.
Well, I think that they saw, and I think obviously Nick Saban kind of jumped on this too with the way he was, you know, approaching his players and whatnot. Like he saw that kids were changing in terms of you got to coach them individually. It's not a cookie cutter thing. So he started taking it and saying, all right, bring players in, talk to him. You know, Bill Belichick did that with the pros. I mean, you look at that, like, how do you get the guys like, you know, a guy that thinks he's like what I mean, look, Randy Moss is a great example, right? Like those guys went in there and they fit into a peg. And it was like, this guy is whatever. He took some of those guys and now all of a sudden they're this here. Like, how is this guy good? Well,
Amazing.
he does his job, like all of that stuff. Like you invest in the person and the player themselves, and then all the other rewards from it. Right now, look, we understand that yes, Jimmys and Joes matter, but who those Jimmys and Joes are as a person on top of being physically gifted or whatever that is matters to you really want to be good on a consistent basis. You know, you continue to you get those Jimmys and Joes that can run fast and jump high, and now you develop the mindset and a mental capacity that good luck, buddy, because now you're really working with the two things that like you're good.
There's no doubt about it. That's exactly it. It's that was really good. That was
Good dude.
Yeah, good dude. And yeah, so we will we're not back till next week, right?
Monday morning. Coach Gower finally gonna get him on, hopefully.
Yes. I know we're working to get him on, so that was really good. And oh man. And then
Sounds good.
I think we're all set. We're all set.
Awesome.
We will see you guys on Monday.